Hi, I'm Sandy Rose.
Hi, I'm Reverend Franklin D. Morris Jr.
Hi, I'm Pastor William Q. James, and we are the owners of WVTC Gospel Radio Network.
And I am Ramon Perry, president of WVTC.
Well, with your votes and prayers, WVTC Gospel Radio Network made it to round 2 of the Stellar Gospel Music Awards in the category of Internet Radio Station of the Year. And one last time, we need your vote.
So we need you to go to www.thestellarawards.com and click on the 2023 Radio Station Award ballot.
Once you're on the ballot, look for the category Internet Radio Station of the Year and cast your vote for WVTC Gospel Radio Network, Ramon Perry, president.
Voting is limited to 2 per household, and voting closes on Monday, May 1st.
We thank you for voting for WVTC Gospel Radio Network, and we ask that God's continued blessings upon you and your entire family. Remember, we're WVTC Gospel Radio Network, where
we're winning victory through Christ.
WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users.
This is Soulful Inspiration. It's your girl, Nikki Jones. This will be an hour to feed your soul with music and laughter, information and inspiration. You're listening to WVTC Detroit. All designed with you in mind. So sit back, relax, and get ready to join the conversation with me, Nikki Jones. Soulful inspiration. Inspirations. Yes, sir.
Welcome to Soulful Inspirations. I am your girl, Nikki Jones. So excited to be with you tonight. I am coming from home. What? I'm coming from home. Yes, girl. You know we could do this because why? It's the internet. Right. So this is what we're doing tonight. We're coming from home. We are not in the studio. Why? Because this is going to be a personal conversation. Yes, not just me. There'll be some other young ladies. Why? Because this is the 3rd week and we are doing our My Sister, Your Sister podcast. So I want to bring on my sisters, Michelle and Tamra. Come on in, ladies. How are y'all? Hi.
Hello.
I know we're doing the hands. How y'all ladies doing tonight?
Good to be with you.
Right. Absolutely. It's good to be seen and not viewed.
Be seen and heard.
Hello. Yes. So we have a interesting topic tonight. Talking about the imposter syndrome. Mm-hmm. And I just really want to dive right into it because I think a lot of people are going to benefit from this conversation. I know I did a post yesterday on Facebook and a lot of people chimed in on it, talking about how they either dealt with it or either coached some people through it or something of the sort. So, when I read the definition, Tamara, after you shared it, I said I felt a little exposed. I was like, oh my God, this sounds like me.
Yeah.
And so I really think tonight's topic is going to be beneficial for a lot of people, male and female. And so let's just dive right into it. Michelle, I always let you take control of these conversations. So I'm going to go ahead and let you do that. Introducing my sister, Michelle Johnson.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much, Nikki, for sharing the platform on the 3rd third week of each month to My Sister Your Sister podcast. Happy to be back with you all. Actually, I think I want to start the conversation with the definition, but I want to pass it to Tamara because this was really Tamara's suggestion to really focus on this, and I think there's some real gems and things that she wants to share with us. So Tamara Fontaine Hardy will chime in after I read the quick definition of it, and I also want to share a resource for readers as well. So let me get to the definition, and then I'll chime back in when Tamara kind of shares her reflections. So imposter syndrome, or doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud at work. I mean, that's plainly put, right? It makes it easier to digest. But when you look at the definition, the fuller definition, it's the condition of feeling anxious and not experiencing success internally, despite being high performing in external objective ways. And this condition, as I read earlier, results in people feeling like a fraud or a phony and doubting their abilities. We need to sit with that for a minute.
Yes.
Because that is, I think to your point, it's like, have I experienced imposter syndrome or something?
Yes.
And you got to sit with it for a minute. But Miss Tamara Fontaine Hardy, why don't you jump in and share why you thought this was an important topic for us to cover today? Tamara, can you hear us?
Hey there. So,
Hey.
Michelle, what I will say is this. Hey, can you guys hear me? I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yeah.
All good.
The reason why I suggested this, okay, great. The reason why I suggested this topic is because recently I applied for a new job. And I was sharing with a very close friend of mine that my feeling as though that if they were to ask me to take the position, I wasn't sure if I was qualified. I wasn't sure that I was legitimate and that I had the skills and the techniques necessary to really perform in the role the way I needed to. Now, I applied for the job. I remember reading the description, and I remember saying, Lord, if this is for me, open the door. And if it's not for me, close the door. Because I don't want to be any place that I'm not supposed to be. I want to be completely aligned with where God wants me. And you don't want to be with someplace where you're not supposed to be anyway.
Right.
But then after I applied for the job, I did the 2 interviews. They both went very well. Something in me crept up. Something inside of me crept up and said, what if you actually get it? And maybe it was a little bit of fear. But what if you actually get it? Are you qualified to sit at that table? Particularly as we went around the table and they told me who was at the table and who I would be working with. And these were some top shelf is what I like to call them. Top shelf people. There's not the people at the bottom of the shelf. It ain't the cheap liquor as they would call it. It's the top shelf. And so I'm thinking, am I qualified to sit at the top shelf? And my girlfriend said, hold up, wait a minute, stop. How dare you say that you're not good enough? And she put me back in my place. And then, and that's where this came from, is me feeling that I wasn't good enough to be there. Even though I've worked, I've done everything, my past, every job I've had has prepared me for this moment. I still felt that there was something in me that wasn't good enough to sit at that table. And I thought, if I felt like this, then others must feel this way too.
Well, let me ask you this, because it stems from somewhere, and I want to get to that. It stems from somewhere. Imposter syndrome is not something that is just made up in folks' head. So as y'all know, I did a little, reading.
Yes.
And there's a really good article that I want to share the link to with your listeners that I think can really shed a lot of light on the topic. I'm going to place it in the chat now, but it's called Stop Telling Women They Have Imposter Syndrome. So this is for many women feeling like an outsider isn't an illusion. It's a result of systemic bias and exclusion. And so it goes into that, you know, I gave you the definition, and, you know, it was a diagnosis often given to women, but the fact that it is considered a diagnosis at all is problematic. And this is the summary of the article that I'm reading. The concept who developed, or whose development in the 1970s excluded the effects of systemic racism, classism, xenophobia, and other biases, took a fairly universal feeling of discomfort and second guessing and mild anxiety in the workplace, and especially for women. And the answer to overcoming imposter syndrome is not to fix individuals, but to create an environment that fosters a number of different leadership styles, and where diversity of racial, ethnic, and gender identities is viewed as just as professional as the current model. So I say to you, you know, what I appreciate about the article, and there's so much more in the article that I would love to highlight as we go on in our conversation. But I appreciate the fact that this is not being viewed as, or the article is trying to impress upon us not to make it, to help us understand that this is not an individual problem.
Exactly.
This is not you being messed up, you being the mistake. But when that term was coined in the 70s, it didn't account for racism. It didn't account for classism or xenophobia and all the other biases. Matter of fact, when they coined the term, I don't even think they had talked to women of color specifically. But they wanted to create something to label women, particularly since women were definitely in the workplace vying for jobs that were meant for men. So I appreciate the fact that they're highlighting that this is not an individual problem, but there's some real sexist, racist, classism issues going on with it, that it gets perpetuated in the workplace. And so I ask you, Tamara, when you share like why you came up with this concept, I would love to know, do you recall a moment or an instance where you were in an environment where that was perpetuated for you, and you have carried this imposter syndrome with you that made you feel like you were not qualified for this job?
I think every environment that I've ever been in the workplace, because one thing I came to realize, I'm reading this book right now, and it's called I'm Not Yelling, and it's by Elizabeth Leba, and I would recommend that you get it. I'm Not Yelling, okay? Written by a Black woman. And what she says is not necessarily internalized oppression on myself that I have. It's a matter of the fact that I've been treated that way. In every place or workspace that I've been in, because of the oppression and because of the racism and the things that we've experienced, is that I'm not the fraud, but go into places and spaces where they treat you like the fraud. And after you do that so many times, you experience that it becomes internalized, and you start questioning your own authenticity. And I'm as authentic as they come, right? But people will question you when they feel like they belong at the table, but you don't, for whatever reason. And so I had to come to understand that it's not me. I am qualified. I'm authentic. I've done the work. And just because someone else doesn't want me at that table does not mean I don't belong there. And it's not something that I did, it's how I was treated in every single job that I've ever been in, because I show up as a strong Black woman, and I'm not afraid to speak my mind, and I do show up. People will treat you that way because they want to minimize you. They don't want you to come to the table and bring your best self. And a lot of the things she talked about in the book, you know, people taking your ideas and your thoughts and making them their own, speaking over you, not allowing you to present yourself, your best self, because they don't want you. They don't want you to get the credit for something that they want to get the credit for. When that happens year after year, job after job, it does something to you, and you can easily adopt saying something's wrong with me, when in reality, there was never anything wrong with you. Something was wrong with the person that didn't want you to be there. But it had nothing to do with me. If God qualified me, then he qualified me to be there. And I had to take that and be like, wait a minute. When I was created, I was qualified at that very moment. God won't bring me to something that he won't take me through. And so if he gives me that opportunity, he's already equipped me with everything I need to succeed and be successful, because greater is he that's in me. Right. And so I had to start, when what's that song? Speak to yourself or whatever.
Encourage yourself.
Yeah, that is. Encourage yourself. I had to encourage myself.
I was like, speak to your heart by
I had to encourage myself, because if you don't, people will talk down to you and start making you believe that you're not good enough, and that you going around looking for somebody to
validate
you up and praise you up. And God already gave me what I need. But in that moment, something crept up in me because of the oppression that I've experienced, being, applying for jobs and being told that, well, we want to give it to this person who don't look like you because she's been here and we haven't given her an opportunity, when she shouldn't have got the opportunity because she didn't have the education, she didn't have the training, and she couldn't do the job. But, when you get passed over for roles and then they don't want to pay you what you're worth, sometimes you cannot internalize that oppression. I said a lot. I'm gonna give it back to you, Michelle.
Well, the show was over now, so I know. But I do think your story relates to the story in the Harvard Business Review article that I brought up and mentioned. I mean, this was an individual who was constantly being looked over. There were a lot of microaggressions happening, a lot of bullying happening, and it all just played on her psyche, and it deepened her anxiety and her self-hate. And I think the lesson here for listeners is I think your faith is such an anchor. And that it can ground you and give you a sense of comfort always. And God's word is true. It stands, it's true, it's been tested.
Yes.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so I think being grounded in your faith really does help you in those type of situations. I can't imagine not having my faith and going through something like this. Because it's all good to have a girlfriend or your mom or somebody you care about that is pumping you up, but when you don't have that pillar of belief just embedded in you,
right,
that allows you, I think, Tamara, to speak up, that allows you to call it out, that allows you to stand in your authority. And I think that's what folks, and we need to do that as a community. Like, we really need to hold each other in that way, because there's 400 years of slavery. It could do, a lot of that stuff.
It does a lot of damage.
It does a lot of damage, and it gets in our DNA, and it sits there, and it changes our internal ability. Black women walking around here waiting for somebody to say they're okay, or waiting for somebody to justify them. We were justified.
Look in the mirror. You're okay.
You're okay. You were justified. Somebody said, every time I walk into a room, I understand the assignment. And then I have to say, wait a minute, I am the assignment. I've been assigned here. I am the person that's going to come in and make what's wrong right. Right.
Change the environment. Come on.
And so, you're going to change the environment. You're going to change the atmosphere. There's something about what God put in each of us, that he puts us in those places and spaces. And so I'm not doubting myself. And that's what imposter syndrome is that it sets up an environment for you to doubt who you are, who God says you are.
And let's be clear, though, Tamara. Let's be clear, though, that this is not saying that you don't feel a little anxiety in situations.
That's natural.
Or you're nervous. It's just when you let it set in and it becomes the only thing that is of your focus. So regardless of how you're showing up externally, because remember, it's saying typically this imposter syndrome, they claim is towards high, producing, highly achieved individuals. So can you just imagine, like, you're performing out there, but you in your head, like, how these people gonna believe what I'm saying? Such a phony
so that's where it came from. That's the perspective that I had. So
okay.
So for me, it was like, I'm singing, I'm performing, I'm doing whatever, I got a radio show. I got this going on or that going on. And
you wrote a book?
Well, I wrote a chapter in a book, and I'm still writing a book.
Sound like you wrote a book to me.
Produce the album.
Produce the album.
I produced the album. I actually did a one-woman show.
Yes, you did.
You're an actor. So I've done a lot, but I still don't feel sometimes that that it was up to par. Like it was
good enough.
It was good enough. Yeah. I still sometimes don't feel like it's good enough. And it's not what I'm hearing anybody else say. It's what I'm hearing internally. So for me, it's especially like if I go back and listen to myself, like on a Sunday morning, sometimes, sometimes when I sing on Sundays, I'll go back and listen. And if I listen to myself, and microphones don't lie, if I go back and listen to myself and I hear things that I would be critical of if it was somebody else, then to me, it's like, oh my God, Nikki, don't ever sing that song like that again, or don't ever do that run, or don't ever sing that hard, or don't ever do, like, that's how I am. So
but that's me, but you're not being a fraud, Nikki.
But what happens is I get really, I overthink it the next time. And then the next time after that, I'm overthinking it. Or, and so not that I begin to feel like a fraud, but like right now, and this is me being completely transparent, I don't see myself doing another musical project. Like I don't see myself recording music anymore. And it's not because I don't think I can sing. It's because when I hear myself sing, when I go back and listen to it, I don't hear the sound that that I feel like I had back in the day, where it was a little bit more polished, where it was a little bit more clear, where it was a little bit, it has nothing to do with anointing, because anointing happens in the moment, things like that. But for me, it's like, no, I don't sound like an independent gospel artist. I sound like a church singer. And so it's like, nah, I'm good. I'm good singing background, and let me just stay in the background and let me just do that. And that's how I feel about me. But in terms of the imposter syndrome, sometimes I think it applies and sometimes I think it doesn't apply. It just really depends on what I'm talking about when I'm talking about myself. So that's how I kind of felt exposed when I read the definition.
But Nikki, I don't feel like, I think that's just you being sort of critical of yourself. Like we're all critical. I can remember when I first started praying out loud, and you go back and you listen to me like, oh my God, what was I saying? I'll never pray out loud again. I sound like a complete nut, right?
I've said the same thing. I've said, I sound like somebody's grandmother, or either I sound like
no, I trump both of y'all, because I've heard you both pray. And when I got into the prayer group, now listen here, listeners, I got into the prayer group, I was like, Jesus, what assignment is this? Because this was just like way out the lead. I promise y'all, I rehearsed a prayer before I get on the prayer call. I used to. But I was like, I did. Because I was like, oh, these women, they walked with Jesus. Like, I just got on the pyramid. They just picked me up. Like, I'm concerned, so that is so, but I think to your point, there's just this interesting fine line of critical and imposter syndrome. And I think it can, the tables can weigh either way, to your point, Nikki, depending on, their circumstances. But as far as the prayer thing, y'all can let that go, because y'all can pray the paint off the wall. You say wall be white, walls will be white. Don't let them fool y'all people. You say you want some women in prayer. All right now. But anyway,
Jackie Lawler says, "Stop, y'all."
And she's another one that can pray you under the bed.
I mean, pray,
yes, Lord.
Pray you. I mean, you raise up like Lazarus. Like I am alive. I've been renewed.
Listen, before we go any further, if you're watching this, we want you to like and share and subscribe. Yes, this is Soulful Inspirations, but we are doing our My Sister, Your Sister live podcast. This is the third week, and this is what we do every month now for the last 2 months, and we're going to continue this because we have to have these kind of conversations amongst ourselves. And even though we are talking about this from a perspective of a woman in corporate America, this can apply to anybody. So like when I read up on it, I was reading about the five different types of imposter syndrome. Michelle, did you see anything about that?
I did. But go ahead, share with the people.
Share.
I got something to say.
Okay.
So yeah, the five different types of imposter syndrome. There's the expert, there's the superwoman or superman, there's the perfectionist, there's the soloist, and there's the natural genius. And the expert is the person that says you may not like to be called the expert, as it might make you feel like you need to have all the answers.
That's right.
But typically, you fall in the expert category if you shy away from applying into job postings unless you meet every single educational requirement, or you're constantly seeking out trainings and certifications because you think you need to improve your skills.
Ding, 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 ding.
Even if you've been in your role for some time, can you relate to feeling like you still don't know enough?
Hello.
Or do you shudder when someone calls you an expert?
I do. And don't call me no thought leader.
Okay, so that means you might fall in that expert type imposter syndrome, or that might be, the level that you're dealing with. And I'm sure that some of these will apply in different areas of our lives.
Yes.
The superwoman, it says, do you seek external validation to feel that you're worthy or deserving? Do you take criticism personally rather than constructively?
If it's given constructively,
Exactly.
I take it
It depends
constructively.
on how it comes out now.
But
Some of that construction is to tear you down instead of build you up.
But that's the point about the article, right? Like it doesn't
Mhm.
account for the sexism and the classism and all the biases, right? Go ahead, Nikki. You preaching now. Go ahead.
It says, do you find it hard? This is still the superwoman or the superman category. Do you find it hard to say no and set boundaries? Ooh.
I don't have that problem. I tell you no.
Are you a workaholic, and is it affecting your personal and family life? So that's that superman, superwoman. So they never say no, pretty much. They they find it hard to set boundaries and say no. I learned that lesson a little while ago.
That's an expensive proposition.
Yes,
you
it
might
is.
be a superhero, but you ain't gonna be around nobody around to save because everybody gone.
Exactly.
Everybody gone.
So the next one is the perfectionist. And this one, it says, do you hold yourself to a highest standard? That's probably where I fall. Have you been told you micromanage? Now, I don't really micromanage because I'm not trying to manage nobody but myself. But do you kick yourself after a presentation because you made one minor error? That's me.
Yeah.
That's me. And do you focus on your mistakes and failures more than you focus on your successes? That's me.
That's your number. But
in the article, did it say that we can hold pieces of all of them? Because I feel like, everything that you mentioned, I hold all of those pieces.
One thing about being a human is not linear.
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly. So yeah, definitely.
And then it also gives tips. I'll put a link I guess to where to find this, but it was actually on LinkedIn, and it was the 5 types of imposter syndrome by Carmel Murphy. And so I'll put that link in there as well. But and there's the other two, the soloist and the natural genius. And I think a lot of times the soloist has to do everything by themselves, just like what it says. So they don't trust a lot of people, but then they're really hard on themselves too. So there's so much that we could discuss about this. But
yeah,
Michelle, I think that for me, I wanted to talk about this because when I was reading the responses on Facebook, some people even equated it to what they've seen in churches with people doing this, and specifically with how people treat themselves when it comes to how God speaks to them about doing this, that, or the other, and how they feel like a fraud because they're not where they want to be spiritually. Right. They're not where they want to be in terms of how they follow, whatever their purpose is, whatever they feel God has called them to. So I think a lot of times I do see it in church as well. And I think sometimes it's the beginning of burnout.
Oh, that's a really good point. You need to sit with that.
Yeah.
Beginning of burnout. That's really
I think it's the beginning of burnout. And, I think when people start doing this, they start feeling like, they can't do it right.
Nikki, I understand that very well because for a very long time, I knew the Lord was calling me to a higher level, but was afraid to take that next step because of fear of failure. Because what if I do well and then the expectation is that I continue? Once you do something, everybody says, oh, come do it again. Yeah. And then you hold yourself to a level of saying, what if I don't do as well the second time that I did it the first? Is that you walk away or you back up out of it, and then people ask you to do it, and you find reasons and the rationales why you can't show up. I can't tell y'all. I'm just telling on myself tonight. I can't tell y'all how many times I have backed out of something because of fear of failing. Yeah. How many times I have stopped doing something and made up an excuse so that I wouldn't have to get up there and either fail or be successful and then have to do it again and continue to be successful.
But I think I appreciate that, and I'm gonna try to tie this up because when Nikki was talking about it as it pertains to church, I do think a lot of churchgoers suffer imposter syndrome, particularly in that perfectionist piece. Because you want to be right. Come on, Reverend Hardy. Absolutely. It's like you see all these other people walking around and they're known, they got connections with people, you're coming in, I think people are afraid that they will see your imperfection, and that's the whole point. God didn't use nobody that was clean cut, that had a good record, that didn't go to jail, that passed all the classes, that came into the house before 8:00, before the lights came on. God didn't use Paul.
If he was a harlot, honey, come on.
One of them was an embezzler.
One was a hoe.
It's right on.
I mean, come on. That's all
You're absolutely right.
But it's true. In the church, we forget this in the message that we want the imperfect, because that's when God operates his best. He don't operate his best when it's all perfect and neat. He want to show his best in a situation that is like looking dire.
Exactly.
But oh God. Okay.
But
oh God. He did it. So I'm just saying that as we, walk the halls of our churches and we see new people. And that's what I appreciate about you all in Embassy, is that I didn't feel like I didn't feel the imposter syndrome in that case. Let me say it like that, because I had a group of women who shared their testimonies and their stories with me. And that just made me feel like very vulnerable to be able to share. And I think that's really what it's about.
Listen, I live my testimony out in front of your face.
Yes.
And so and it makes it different. That's the one thing I liked about our service last week, the awakening service, is that people allowed themselves. It was a testimony service, which we need to have more often, but it allowed people to see their humanity and where they were and where God has brought them. And people could latch onto that because they saw themselves in the testimony. And they say, wait a minute, I see you getting up there preaching. I see you singing. I see you doing all this stuff. You mean to tell me that's where God brought you from? Well, I'm all right then. And I know that because you did it, I can. And
that's it.
The song title, if he did it before, he can do it again.
He can do it again.
I've just gotten to an age, I don't know if it's because, that I don't care no more. When you're younger, you care about what people have to say.
That's true.
I'm at the platform. I'm like, y'all.
But that's maturity, though. That is like a whole lot of Jesus in maturity.
It comes with time, and it comes with age, and it comes with maturity. And the message I will tell people is, don't wait.
Don't wait.
To get there. Take back who you are right now. Don't wait till you become 59 to say, you know what, I'm going to walk on water. That is my theme song, by the way. I'm going to walk on water because I recognize that I can do all things. But it took me so long to figure it out. I wish I had listened.
Wait a minute. Why Pastor D said, what's your age, Rev?
You know my age, girl. I am 59, about to be 60. But I wish I had listened and believed. Because it's not about hearing. You hear the word every Sunday, but you got to believe it. You got to internalize the word that you can do all things greater than what the people are treating you or how they're treating you or what they're saying about you. And that's hard to do.
Yeah.
To believe what people are saying, believe God over the enemy. And we
sometimes though, Tam, for me, it's really about believing past what I see of myself.
Yes, but that's the enemy.
I literally have to talk myself into doing some things. Like I have to talk myself into completing certain projects, or I have to talk myself into it because I think that I think that I have the most the most power. I believe I have the most power over myself. You know what I'm saying? Like it's within me that it's the conversation I have with myself that's more important than the conversations that I'm having with anybody else or what anybody else is telling me. Like, you know, and I try not to operate in any kind of false humility, but at the same time, I'm a realist. Like I said, the microphones don't lie. So if I heard myself, and I know how critical I am, how critical I am, and I know what my ear is hearing, I know that that's not the best sound that I could have produced. So it's like, that's probably not where I need to go back to. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I need to switch over to some other style. Maybe I need to do this, that, or the other. Maybe I need to go back and see Shirley, whatever the case may be.
Not Shirley.
Shirley, the vocal coach, Shirley.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you meant Shirley Caesar. I'm like, you gotta go
But I'm just saying, like, for me, it's my internal dialogue that I have to deal with more so than anybody else.
Yeah, it's always the internal dialogue, what we tell ourselves. But I go back to the question that Michelle asked me: was there something that happened when I was younger that could have pushed me there? Because everybody don't deal with this, maybe a lot of people do, but there are some people who are just, they don't deal with it. And Michelle, if I were to go back and think about my childhood, I would say that I was a one of 8. I was in the middle. My mama didn't have time to validate me. So I had to validate myself, and I didn't know how to do that. So for years, I've been waiting for somebody to validate me. And because they never did, I never felt that. I was always trying to validate myself, but didn't know how to do it. And then you know how you go to church.
And you doubted yourself when you did it.
Right.
But you don't know that.
Right.
But if you do it and it don't turn out right, then you You validated something was wrong. You're like, I ain't doing that again. And so for me, it was more so that I never had a father to validate me. My mother didn't validate me. There was never a pastor or a preacher that validated me. So I had to figure it out on my own. My brothers and sisters didn't validate me. And so when you're constantly trying to do it on your own and you don't have that voice telling you that you're okay and that you can do it, and you're constantly working hard by yourself. I feel like for the last 59 years, I've worked hard by myself. And then there finally became a point where, you know, I did get the pastor that validated me, right? But that was a long time coming. And there are other people out there waiting to be validated. And Jesus, I had to learn that Jesus validated me at the cross. And he validated me before the cross. He validated me in my mother's womb because he said, I knew you in your mother's belly. And he put everything in me at that time, but I didn't understand that. And so if there's a message I could give to the young women right now who are maybe going through this, is that you're validated already, and God validated and justified you already. The only person you owe anything to is him. But I understand trying to, you know, we had a little different. We didn't have social media. We didn't have to make sure that we have Facebook and TikTok, that you TikToking your life away because time is ticking, TikTok, and you sit there at TikTok trying to figure it out. And before you know it, it's midnight and 5 hours of your day is gone because you TikTok looked at somebody else's life. And so I just think that we need to validate each other. And that's one of the reasons why we have My Sister, Your Sister, is because we want to validate our sisters and let them know you're worthy. You've already been validated.
Yes, you have. You already got the gold seal of approval.
Yes.
Come on. That's true. I mean, you know, and I guess for me, you know, what really, you know, a lot of stuff stood out in the article, but it really helped me get clear that being unsure doesn't mean that you have it. Exactly. And so there's going to be doubt. There's going to be a little anxiety. There's going to be a little questioning, but it doesn't automatically put you in the imposter syndrome bucket. And let's be clear, that article is saying that word should not even be applied because it was created to oppress women. It was not created to be supportive of women. And so we need to toss away with that and put positive, self-affirming things out there about ourselves and our sisterhoods. We may not like all the things our sister do. I remember when Nikki went on Facebook and talked about that was her last bowl of Fruit Loops. I almost wanted to call it, be like, girl, the Fruit Loops of all the things you could put down. You know what I'm saying? You're going to put down the Fruit Loops? Like, that is a childhood memory. Come on. We can make better choices. Right.
Mine was, you know, hey,
Michelle, you about to make me fall
that
out.
upset me. I'm like, how you gonna break that childhood code? Like, there's a lot of, you can put down that bread, you can put down that bacon, you know, you can put down a lot of stuff. But the Fruit Loops gotta pay.
The Fruit Loops gotta pay the price.
Right, the Fruit Loops gotta pay the price. Put it all, Joe.
But you know what? I don't think I've had any since that day.
I remember that was out of all of your Facebooks, if that one gagged me, I was like, I don't know if I should unfollow her because this was a travesty. You gonna just put Toucan Sam on the shelf?
Like, no, girl.
But be that as it may, it was a bit of a distraction. But our point is, we need to be sending out positive, affirming.
Yes.
Messages. So if you TikToking your life away, make it useful and beneficial to the people. Don't try to see this false sense of yourself because that is not gonna last. It's not gonna hold. You're gonna see right through it. But you really need to be sending out and sharing positive affirmations of women. Period.
Amen.
You know, in the book that I'm reading, she talked about Michelle Obama mentioning that she felt like an imposter.
She did.
And I was like, Michelle Obama, I mean, all of the accomplishments, and she imposter. I was like, wow.
In the article,
show you that it doesn't matter what level you attain, that you can still be made to feel like you're not good enough.
Wow.
Agreed. And they share some of that in the article too, some of the famous women who have actually experienced imposter syndrome. So it's that's another thing. I mean, it doesn't matter. Again, imposter syndrome don't account for class. Like you said,
none of
Michelle
that.
Obama, she
None
was
of
out
that.
here telling the children to eat the fruits and the vegetables. I mean, and the people was eating the fruits and the vegetables. Right?
And they was exercising.
I mean, she's talking about the level of influence.
Yes. Yeah.
And at the same time, she's feeling like she isn't good enough.
No, that she was a fraud.
That she was a fraud, yes.
That she was doubting herself. And she out here, she changed my life. I ate more fruits and vegetables since Nikki went on FaceTime and said she wasn't eating no Fruit Loops. So I went on ahead and did some fruits and some vegetables, according to Michelle Obama.
I can't stand you.
I put in my bowl of Fruit Loops. I said, I'd be doggone.
But that's, you know what, it's interesting though that Michelle Obama, when you mention her, my mind automatically went obviously to how a lot of people who did not like her, how they portrayed her. And I wonder what part of what other people said, like how much of that influenced, you know, how she felt about herself or made her feel like, you know, she was a fraud. Like what part of her did she feel like a fraud as a wife or as a first lady of the country, as a mother, as an influencer? Like what part of her did she feel fraudulent about? Because it's like I can look at her and I don't see anything about her that's fraudulent. And I'm sure she has her flaws, but just, you know, but me looking at her from the outside, I don't see anything about her that might be fraud, that could be even portrayed as fraudulent. And so I wonder what role was she, you know, feeling fraudulent in? Did it say anything about that?
You know, I don't remember. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, it didn't get specificity in the article that I read, but I don't know if it was anything in the book, Tam, that you read. But I will say that's the slick thing about imposter syndrome, right? Because you're doing all of the things externally that people are appreciating. Like people are giving you the accolades that you don't even want to receive and accept. And so that's the slick part about this thing, is that no matter how much you are achieving, actually, it holds you internally as a hostage in thinking that nothing you doing, whether you're a mother or the first lady. Now we want to do some comparison. The one that was imposter syndrome at its finest was Trump wife. Okay. That one,
Alania, whatever.
Yeah, I can't even.
Yeah, that was imposter. Yeah.
Well, I mean, she was actually taking things from. I mean,
taking trying
quotes.
to make it her own. And didn't do a very good job of it. I mean,
and she had a team of people for it. I don't understand that, but anyway,
exactly.
But that was some fraud stuff right there. And I hope
that
she
was
felt
fraudulent.
It, and I felt it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, you know, I guess it doesn't, you know, it's so crazy how like you can feel so strong in one area of your life and in another area you might experience this imposter syndrome, because that's the space where you've been the most criticized, or the one where you didn't get the most validation that you needed, or you just didn't have enough of the belief system and you built to like hold it at the level that it should be held. That's a slick thing about imposter syndrome.
I have to agree with that. I want to take a minute though and thank some of the people who have been commenting. I see Teresa on here. Pastor D was in. Pastor D, Joe and Jackie Lawler. Yolanda says, yes, because when you're 55 years old, I don't care what you say. I am listening to what God is telling me.
Right on.
You get to that age, whatever.
Go ahead, Yolanda.
You better, Yolanda.
Pastor D said, I think it's been in divine time for all of us, for us all. So I think, you know, a lot of times, you know, as women, we probably do too much other stuff other than lifting one another up. You know, we get together and eat. We do that. But in the meantime, I think we we should probably spend more time uplifting each other, and not just women, but people in general, spend more time lifting each other up than we do being
Yeah.
extra critical, of one another. And it's good to be able to accept constructive criticism. It's really good to be able to do that, but lead with love. you know
Yes. Come on,
Lead
lead
with
with
love.
love.
And I think
Lead
that
with love.
when you have a relationship with somebody and you lead with love, then it's easier for them to accept the constructive criticism. And I think
Yes.
a lot of times when people, begin with criticism as opposed to, the other way around, then that's when they get the rejection, and that's when they get people who don't want to hear what they have to say, because you didn't lead with love, and you might not even know me like that. So why you coming at me? You don't even know me like that. You know what I'm saying? Do I have a relationship with you as to, you know, you have that kind of space and opportunity in my life to tell me something critical, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So I
Say it,
think
Nikki.
all of that is important. And then obviously, when you're talking to yourself, like Tamara said earlier, you got to encourage yourself.
Encourage.
And that negative self-talk it just adds fuel to the fire. So
Yeah. And can I say, Nikki, that Tamara led a prayer last week talking about lead in love. Lead in love. So clearly that is
with love.
The banner we all need to be up under.
And I think that along with that, Nikki, is that as Black women supporting each other, we also have to be accountable and hold our sisters accountable, so that when you see that behavior, you not only call it out, but you encourage them at the same time. And then call it out, encourage them, and then give them some tips on what they can do so that they don't feel that way, so that they don't go in that direction. And I don't think we do enough of all three. We may say, girl, you're not no imposter, but we don't necessarily help get them over that hump. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's some self-work that they have to do, and that's part of the accountability part.
We have to help them be accountable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
True.
And so I think that we need to spend more time helping people get past that. It's not enough just to mentor someone. You got to do a little bit more. Sometimes we need to do a little bit more. Maybe we need to sponsor them. Maybe we need to call their names out, so that the people, they know that they do have those skills that people are seeking after. You know what I mean? We can do more sometimes, and I think that we don't take the time to lift our sisters up the way we should, and even our brothers, because the book I'm reading says, don't think it's just for the sisters. Brothers with imposter syndrome as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't stop with just us as well. And we don't lift our Black brothers up as much as we should sometimes. We got they get torn down in the streets, and we don't lift them up like we should. And I think that we need to start doing that more.
Absolutely. It's been a great discussion. Man, we can really go deeper. We could really go deeper and talk about this a lot more, because I think I'm sure there's some things that, we could bring out and discuss again, but I think that for the most part, we have at least touched on it. We've at least talked about, the definitions of it. We've talked about it in the workplace. We've talked about it in church. We've talked about it, in our personal lives, where we see it, and, how we're dealing with it, if you will. And I think that the discussion can continue as long as people don't forget, that not only do we not have to accept it, but we can combat it by being assertive and not aggressive.
Yes.
And speaking up for ourselves and speaking up for one another as well.
And it's okay to be unsure.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's okay to be a little nervous.
Yeah.
It's when you sit in it.
Right. It's not the absence of fear. It's the willingness to go ahead in spite of, right?
Hey. And the Fruit Loops. We
have to lean into who we are and what God created us to be. And keep leaning in until you believe it. Keep leaning in. It's not about faking it till you make it. You don't have to fake it till you make it. You already that person, and we say that all the time, girl, I'm just faking it till I make it. not realizing that we're actually doing what we say you shouldn't do.
That's right.
You don't have to fake it. You know,
You don't.
I know that we say that.
Say you tired.
Do it.
Say you don't want to do it. Be real with yourself.
Be real. I'm a realist. I am definitely a realist. Like if I can't, I just can't. And I've learned how to say, no, I won't be able to do that.
Boundaries, right? Saying no and placing boundaries.
Listen, I always say you can't build the muscle until you work the muscle.
That's
so
right.
You have to step into each opportunity with confidence. Even if you're afraid, do it afraid, right?
Yeah.
Step into that moment. Know that you bring value and that God placed you there because he has something in you that he wanted to deposit in that place and space. But at some point, I do think that the conversation does need to continue because we need to talk about how we show up with masks. Listen, how we show up with different masks on and how we take the mask off. Because imposter syndrome is all about showing up as
with
something that you think you have to be something that you're not. And so we all do it. We all walk into the business place and we have our mask on. Then we say, "Whoa, girl, I can be myself now." Right. That's a part of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, we code change often.
That code switching is real. That code switching
is real. That's a whole nother topic we can do.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Code switching. Sometimes it's necessary though.
Girl.
It depends on the context, right?
It depends on the context.
If it's for good or it's for evil, because I ain't code switching for evil.
No.
And I ain't code switching for Fruit Loops for like puffins. If you get taking the mask off.
I'm gonna buy you some Fruit Loops. How about that? I'm just gonna buy you some Fruit Loops and I'm gonna bring them over your house so you can have them.
I took the mask off. I was no longer pretending the Fruit Loop gate was all right with me.
Ladies, it has been real and
so much fun. Thank you.
This conversation has been really good, and I believe it's been fruitful for the people who have participated and people who will be watching this later on. So, thank you so much. We are out of time. It was a quick conversation.
You guys, again, the book is "I'm Not Yelling." And I'll I'll send it to you, Nikki, so you can put it on. Okay.
Okay, we'll do that. We will add. Actually, you could just go back to the link in Facebook and or YouTube and just actually you can do it on Facebook and go ahead and add it in.
Yes, I will. I'm Not Yelling: A Black Woman's Guide to Navigating the Workplace.
Yes, Lord. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. Thank you, everyone who joined us online for the My Sister, Your Sister podcast. And you've been listening to Soulful Inspirations on WVTC Detroit. We love you. Please vote for us on for the Stellar Awards. Go to the Stellar Awards website and vote for WVTC Detroit. Love you. Good night.
Love you. Lead with love. Lead with love.
Lead with love and Fruit Loops.
You've been listening to
Soulful Inspiration.
We're so glad you hung out with us today. We're here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on WVTC Detroit. If you'd like to partner with us or sponsor a show with your business, send us an email at tntsoulllc@gmail.com, or you can call us at 313-570-8280. I'm your girl,
Nikki Jones.
The views and opinions expressed on the previous broadcast are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of WVTC Radio Detroit, its advertisers, or affiliates.
Hi, I'm Sandy Rose.
Hi, I'm Reverend Franklin D. Morris Jr.
Hi, I'm Pastor William Q. James, and we're the owners of WVTC Gospel Radio Network.
And I am Ramon Perry, president of WVTC.
Well, with your votes and prayers, WVTC Gospel Radio Network made it to round 2 of the Stellar Gospel Music Awards in the category of Internet Radio Station of the Year. And one last time, we need your vote.
So we need you to go to www.thestellarawards.com and click on the 2023 Radio Station Award ballot.
Once you're on the ballot, look for the category Internet Radio Station of the Year and cast your vote for WVTC Gospel Radio Network, Ramon Perry, President.
Voting is limited to 2 per household, and voting closes on Monday, May 1st.
We thank you for voting for WVTC Gospel Radio Network, and we ask that God's continued blessings upon you and your entire family. Remember, we're WVTC Gospel Radio Network, where
we're winning victory through Christ.
Here's just one of the fine programs right here on WVTC Detroit. Hey y'all, summer is coming. We want to remind you of the WVTC. Wash your hands. Stay updated on your vaccinations. If you got a temperature, get a COVID test and cover your cough. We're on a mission, so don't let COVID stop you.
You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.